Well, so we know obviously proactive and reactive approaches are best. Proactive is great for mitigating costs. We recognize that cyber insurance protects your investment and your organization, essentially, in the event that something does happen. The IT risk assessment, pen testing, vulnerability scanning, those are all great due diligence pieces that play into what we've been talking about. But really, let's quickly talk about vendor due diligence because that matters.
Well, and ultimately, right now, the two main ways that ransomware or cyber events are happening is employee negligence or lack of understanding,
User issues.
or a third party, meaning a vendor that has access to my environment in some way or my information, and they get breached. So, and ultimately, those are the more lucrative breaches for the criminal because they're able to attack multiple companies at the same time. You cannot outsource your responsibility for your data. You can only outsource the activity. So in that case, you're just as responsible for your data that is either hosted or maintained by a third party that you are if you have it in your own office. And so you need to make sure that you're doing the same level of diligence over who can access your data at the third party that you do for your internal employees. There is no difference.
So what I hear you saying is you can do everything right to protect yourself, but if your vendor is not extending that same level of effort over your data and
Well, and we
systems.
do see many companies that go, oh, company ABC handles that for us and they do a great job. How do you know?
Yeah, prove it.
We do audit a lot of companies where we look and we say, oh yeah, our internal employees follow all these great protocols and criteria for accessing and everything else. And then we see vendor accounts that never expire, or they have no idea who the people are that are actually accessing their information.
Or administrative privileges
right.
that are just running rogue.
Or multiple administrators, and I'm like, are you sure that all of those people still work at your third party? Do you have any kind of contractual protection to say, hey, your vendor is required to tell you when John that had access to your network gets fired?
Sure.
Because we have seen cases where it's not the vendor being malicious, employee to the vendor. They're hurting a third party company that is the vendor's client because they're mad at the vendor because they got terminated or whatever.
Okay. That makes sense. So if they're not doing IT risk assessments, pen testing, vulnerability scanning,
It would be a red flag.
it would be a red flag. Okay, so it would be reasonable to say, hey, do you have an IT risk assessment you can provide, or an SOC report, or those
right.
kind of
And
things?
I mean, if you're not doing an SOC report, at a minimum, a security questionnaire to understand what those critical IT vendors have access to, what are they doing to protect your data? Are they putting as much effort as you as a company are putting forth to make sure that your data is protected the same way you protect it with the third party?
Okay, perfect. So last question, and this is kind of more on the horizon type topic. I'm sure we'll meet back and talk more about this later as things emerge, but let's talk risk and artificial intelligence.
Well, it exists, especially for regulated industries. We're seeing a lot of talk of the use of AI. It is a force multiplier. It is coming. There is nothing you can do about it, but you do need to manage it. We've had discussions with different companies about utilizing AI internally, utilizing it for their clients. You want to be very sure what information is getting exposed to an aggregate AI, because unless you control all the information that the AI is using to generate its responses, you're exposing data no differently than you handing over a database to someone.
Well, let's talk an example. For instance, if you're utilizing some form of AI in order to write a document, and that document provides proprietary private information, it's not that dissimilar than just handing over the information, correct?
Sure. I mean,
Okay.
right now, let's go with the big elephant in the room, the Chat GPT. That AI database can be accessed for free. If, let's say, a medical billing company begins using generative AI to write the information about their medical billing statements. You're exposing HIPAA data to a third party without any management control around it that can be accessed by anybody for free. Those are the type of informations where you need to understand what information is getting exposed. Are corporate secrets getting exposed through the information you're giving in a generative AI? Because someone else may not be looking for your specific company's information, but it could simply be your confidential information is being exposed in a response to someone else's query.
Yeah, and really considering all the compliance requirements around cybersecurity in different industries, it would be really important to
Well,
think
and
through
all
your
the compliance networks do not differentiate AI versus human. It is your data, and how your data is exposed is governed. And in those areas, AI is no different than a database sitting in your server behind several closed doors and all of those things.
Well, so I feel like in the IT risk and cybersecurity, conversations like this are helpful, but they also just pop the top off of the discussion. So I would like to say, if anybody who's watching these videos has questions or would like to discuss further, both Scott and I would be a great resource in order to do so. Scott, I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you. I enjoy talking about this stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. And thanks again.